Hey, welcome back to RV Capital Talk here on RVNN TV. With us this segment is Mr. Greg Fohr, who is the current chairman of RVIA, the Recreation Vehicle Industry Association, as well as president of Dicor Corp., a major supplier to the RV industry here in Elkhart. Welcome to RV Capital Talk.
Thank you, Dave. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really glad to have you, and we understand things are going to be getting pretty busy here in another week or so with RVIA. Committee week. What happens during that period of time?
Committee week is probably one of the most important events of the year for the association. We have over 100 volunteers from member companies who come into Washington, D.C. And meet in their respective committees. Supplier committee, we have Go RVing Coalition meets, the Standards Committee meets, the Board of Directors meets. And basically we take what we did at the strategic planning session and put it into implementation through the committees.
Okay.
And then it comes back to the board, and we use that for budgetary basing for fiscal year 2012.
Right, and it's a large association, and it's a little bit like herding cats to get all that to kind of work together, isn't it?
It is sometimes, but you know, we have a great staff at RVIA,
yeah,
and we have great volunteers in this industry, and they understand why they're there, and they understand what they have to do, and they get it done.
That's great. Great.
You know, if you would render down, Greg, on the RVIA side of things, what's really to occur there, and what things are going to be considered? What would you qualify as the top items on the table for committee week?
Well, there's a number, but let me try to squash those down if I can for you. Obviously, the Go RVing Coalition is a big issue, which we'll get into later, I think. But if you go beyond that, the franchise legislation across the country is still one of the primary legal issues that our industry faces, not just manufacturers, but manufacturers and our dealer partners both face that. So we continue to work there. We have more federal issues on the table than we've ever had in the history of RVIA, which is just an indication of continued government intervention in business, in our opinion. But we face those, and we don't have much choice but to deal with them. So if you take the government interaction, you take Go RVing, those are probably the primary two that faces.
Without getting bogged down in it, probably nothing is more delicate than franchise legislation. And when we speak of that, to clarify, we're talking about manufacturers,
right,
as it relates to their dealers.
That's correct.
In the agreements by which they work.
That is correct.
All right, and could you just touch a bit on what is relevant more so today?
I think what happens is, especially since the economic downturn, the car dealer associations and the dealer franchise laws that have taken place in states have been renewed and re-looked at. And in many cases, in many states, the RVs fall under the automobile franchise legislation. We think there needs to be RV-specific legislation because there's a lot of differences between the car industry and the RV industry. But that's a tough fight. And it's not always a fight with our dealer partners. Sometimes it's a fight with the state legislators or with the car dealer associations who don't want to lose that membership group. But it is something the industry needs, is RV-specific legislation. We prefer we didn't have to operate under legislative guidelines, but we do. And that's because sometime in the past somebody didn't treat somebody very nice.
Yeah.
So now we're going to let the government try to dictate how we treat each other.
How does environmental legislation and RV, that kind of regulation fall into this? Is that a problem or an opportunity?
Yes.
Both.
It is. You know, it's not legislation so much as it is what we call government gone wild. Okay, they have the administration and these departments who don't have any accountability or very little accountability.
Sure.
One of the big ones we have right now is FEMA's elusive air quality standard versus EPA's wood standard as it relates to formaldehyde.
Gotcha.
Okay, they're both on the same side. They have two far different measurements of a standard. I don't know how anybody in any business can operate. You know, if you pass one, you don't pass the other, and if you don't, it's a terrible situation.
Right.
So we continue to fight that.
That's right.
What else, if you look at across the different committees of RVIA that will be meeting that same week, what are some other hot buttons for the industry that people should be aware of?
It goes back, a lot of it goes back to the government. We have these CAFE standards, which for the first time pickup trucks and motorhome chassis are going to come under the new CAFE standards. That's a delicate issue, which we get involved in government affairs, we get involved in the lawyers committee, we get involved in the suppliers committee, so that's kind of an all-encompassing issue that we deal with. And it's unfortunate, and it goes back to the government that we don't have an energy policy. Okay, we're sitting there floating, and everybody understands the problem. Nobody wants to fix it.
That's right.
That's the problem.
And try as you might, as much as you'd love it, not all legislators understand the RV industry.
Most don't.
Yeah, that's right.
Most don't.
Yeah, most don't have it.
And it's also, I might add, a kind of a tough type of federal laws to affect from the vantage point of a recreation vehicle industry. The possibility of RVIA and its constituency affecting CAFE standards is probably, you know, a kind of a Don Quixote thing.
We've been successful in the past, as you know, Sherm, in eliminating motorhome chassis from CAFE standards. We don't think that's probably going to happen this time. We think it's probably too far gone. And to us, it's a block. We're stacking blocks again. We're not letting consumers choose what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to tell them what light bulbs to buy, what toilets to buy. Now we're going to tell them what vehicles to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't play well to the RV audience.
That's right. Does the RVIA get involved in trying to educate some of these other competing constituencies in terms of what the RV industry's point of view is on some of these things, or is that how does that work?
Both through Government Affairs Office at RVIA, where we have a staff that does nothing but monitor and deal with legislative issues, both at the state level and federal level. It also happens through lobbyists, which we hire to do specific things or general things, and it also happens through PR.
Sure.
Our PR efforts are broad and wide and have been for many years.
Right.
And that attracts their attention at times, and we can get them to listen to us. So that helps.
Good. Okay, well, we're going to be talking more about some of the issues facing the RV industry, the RVIA, and the Go RVing Coalition, which I think is one of those PR efforts,
Yes,
basically.
it is.
So we'll be coming back to that in the next segment here on RV Capital Talk, so stay with us.